Your mind is tired of thinking. Not tired of you, tired of itself. Tired of the endless loop, the circling, the reaching. And somewhere beneath all that noise, something in you knows this. Something has been waiting for you to notice. There is a particular kind of tiredness that sleep does not cure. You wake in the morning, and before your feet touch the ground, your mind has already begun, already planning, already rehearsing conversations that may never happen, already scanning for problems, replaying yesterday's moments, building tomorrow's anxieties brick by brick. You pour your coffee, but you are not there. You are in a meeting 3 hours from now. You are in a conversation you had last week, rewriting your responses, imagining what you should have said. Your body moves through the motions of the day, but your mind is elsewhere, always elsewhere. This is not living. This is haunting your own life. The mind was never meant to run endlessly. It was designed to think, yes, but also to rest, to observe, to simply be present without grasping at the next thing. But somewhere along the way, we confused thinking with existing. We began to believe that if we are not thinking, we are not truly alive. And so the mind runs. It runs because it believes it must. It runs because stopping feels like disappearing. But here is what no one tells you: the mind does not want to run forever. It is tired, deeply, profoundly tired, not of existence, but of its own mechanism, the endless churning, the recursive loops, the same thoughts dressed in different words, returning like old ghosts who have forgotten how to leave. You have felt this. In the quiet moments, when you finally sit down and the world goes still, your mind does not rest, it accelerates. It fills the silence with commentary, with tasks, with worries. It pulls you into the past or flings you into the future because it has forgotten how to exist in the now. And beneath all of this, there is a whisper, a small voice that says, "I am so tired of this." That voice is not weakness. It is clarity breaking through. We live in a world that worships the busy mind, the productive mind, the mind that never stops, never slows, never questions whether all this motion is actually taking us anywhere. We celebrate those who sleep less, who hustle harder, who think faster. We measure worth by output, by doing, by the sheer volume of thought converted into action. But what if the mind's greatest strength is not in its ability to think more, but in its ability to think less? What if stillness is not the absence of intelligence, but the presence of wisdom? The Sufis have a teaching. The mind is a beautiful servant, but a dangerous master. When the mind serves you, it is a tool of remarkable precision. It solves problems. It creates beauty. It connects ideas across vast distances. But when the mind becomes the master, when it decides that it must control everything, anticipate everything, protect you from everything, it becomes a prison. And you, the one who is aware of the thinking, become the prisoner. This is the paradox. You are not your thoughts. You are the space in which thoughts arise. But the mind in its tiredness has convinced you otherwise. It has whispered, again and again, if I stop thinking, I will lose control. If I stop planning, everything will fall apart. If I stop worrying, something terrible will happen. And so you let it run. You let it fill every silence with sound, every pause with panic. But the truth that lives beneath the exhaustion is this: most of what your mind thinks about will never happen. Most of the conversations it rehearses will never be spoken. Most of the disasters it predicts will never arrive. The mind is addicted to preparation, but life does not happen in preparation. Life happens now. And right now, your mind is too tired to see this clearly. Imagine a river, not a raging torrent, but a steady, flowing river that has been moving for so long it has forgotten it was ever still. Day after day, year after year, it rushes forward, never questioning, never pausing, simply moving, because that is what rivers do. But deep beneath the surface, beneath the current, beneath the noise of the water against the stones, there is a quiet place. A place where the water barely moves. A place that holds the river's memory of stillness. Your mind is like this river. On the surface, it is constant motion, thoughts rushing, colliding, fragmenting, reforming. But beneath it all, there is stillness. There has always been stillness. The stillness was there before your first thought. It will be there after your last. You do not need to create this stillness. You only need to remember it. And the mind, the tired, overworked, endlessly churning mind, is desperate for you to remember. Because it knows something you have forgotten. Thinking is not your natural state. Awareness is. Thinking is what happens within awareness. But awareness itself does not think. It simply is. It watches. It holds. It allows. And in that allowing, there is a peace so profound that the mind, when it finally touches it, exhales for the first time in years. This is not about stopping thought. That is another trap, another task for the mind to obsess over. This is about recognizing that you are not the thinker. You are the one who notices the thinking. And from that place of noticing, the mind begins to quiet on its own, not because you forced it, but because it finally feels safe enough to rest. Your mind is tired. It has been waiting for your permission to stop. You believe you are your thoughts because you have spent your entire life listening to them. Every fear, every desire, every belief about who you are, they have all been narrated by the voice inside your head. And over time, that voice became so familiar, so constant, that you stopped questioning it. You stopped noticing that it was just a voice. You began to believe it was you. But it is not you. It has never been you. The voice in your head is a storyteller. It is very good at what it does. It takes fragments of memory, pieces of experience, expectations from the world, and it weaves them into a narrative. This is who I am. This is what I want. This is what scares me. This is what I must do to be safe, to be loved, to be enough. And you, the listener, have been so convinced by the story that you forgot you are not the character in it. You are the awareness reading the pages. Here is where the exhaustion deepens. Because the thinking self, the identity, built from thoughts, requires constant maintenance. It must be defended, updated, justified. It must compare itself to others. It must prove its worth. It must remember its failures and rehearse its victories. It is never finished. It is never enough. And so the mind works. It works to keep the story going, to keep the identity intact. It scans for threats to the narrative. It reacts to criticism. It clings to praise. It builds walls around the self it has created, and then spends all its energy guarding those walls. This is why your mind is tired. Not because thinking itself is wrong, but because you have been using thought to construct something that does not need to exist, a separate, isolated, defended self. The Sufis call it the nafs, the ego, self. the part of you that believes it is separate from everything else. The Zen masters call it the small mind, the thinking mind that mistakes its own reflections for reality. Psychology calls it the conditioned self, the identity formed by experience and expectation. But whatever name you give it, the truth is the same. This self is exhausting to maintain. Because it is not real, it is a construct. A necessary construct, perhaps useful for navigating the world, for making decisions, for interacting with others. But it is not the totality of who you are. It is not even close. And yet the thinking mind has convinced you that if this constructed self falls apart, you will fall apart. That if you stop defending it, stop improving it, stop thinking about it, you will cease to exist. This is the great lie. The lie that keeps the mind running long after it should have rested. Here is what the tired mind does not want you to know. You existed before you had thoughts about yourself. You were aware before you learned to narrate your experience. There was a time, perhaps you remember it from childhood, when you simply were. When you played without self-consciousness. When you watched the clouds without needing them to mean something. When you laughed without analyzing whether it was appropriate. That version of you is still here, beneath the thoughts, beneath the identity, beneath the exhaustion. And it does not require thinking to exist. There is a particular pattern the mind falls into when it is tired aloof. You think about something. Then you think about the fact that you are thinking about it. Then you think about why you are thinking about it. Then you judge yourself for thinking about it. Then you think about how to stop thinking about it. And round it goes. This is the mind eating itself. This is the thinking self trying to think its way out of thinking. And it never works. Because the tool you are using, thought, is the very thing creating the problem. You cannot think your way out of overthinking. You cannot analyze your way into presence. You cannot mentally construct your way to stillness. This is not a failure. This is simply the limitation of thought. Thought is extraordinary at solving external problems, how to build, how to plan, how to navigate. But it is clumsy, almost absurd, when turned inward. When thought tries to fix the thinker, it creates more layers, more complexity, more exhaustion. The only way out is not through more thinking, it is through seeing, through simple, direct awareness, through noticing the loop without getting caught in it. And this noticing is already happening. Right now, as you read this, there is something in you that is aware of your thoughts. Something that is not the thoughts themselves, but the space in which they appear. That something is not tired. It has never been tired. It is simply here, watching, holding, allowing. This is who you actually are. And your mind, in its exhaustion, has been trying to get you to notice. There is a moment, a very ordinary, very quiet moment, when the exhaustion becomes so complete that you simply stop. Not because you have figured anything out, not because you have found the answer, but because you are too tired to keep going. And in that stopping, something shifts. The mind, which has been running for so long, finally slows. The internal chatter does not disappear, but it loses its urgency. The thoughts still come, but they no longer demand your full attention. You realize, perhaps for the first time in a long time, that you do not need to respond to every thought that arises. You do not need to follow every worry into the future. Every regret into the past, you can simply let them pass, like clouds across a sky, like sounds in the distance. This is not effort, this is release. And the tired mind, finally exhales. If you have lived your whole life in thought, awareness feels like waking up inside your own life. It feels like suddenly noticing that you are here, actually here, not in your head, rehearsing or planning or remembering, but present fully, completely present in this moment. You notice your breath, not because someone told you to, but because it is happening and you are here to witness it. You notice the weight of your body, the texture of the air, the sound of the world continuing around you. And none of it requires thinking. None of it requires you to do anything. It is already happening. This is the natural state. Not thinking about life, not narrating life, just living it. The Zen tradition calls this shikantaza, just sitting, just being. The Sufis call it fana, the dissolving of the separate self. Modern psychology calls it presence, mindfulness, flow. But labels do not matter. What matters is the experience itself. And the experience is this: when you stop resisting the present moment, when you stop trying to think your way into a better version of now, something loosens. The tightness in your chest eases. The pressure in your mind softens. You realize that the thing you have been searching for, peace, clarity, rest, was never in the future. It was never in the solution to the problem. It was here, always here, waiting for you to stop looking. This does not mean you stop living. It does not mean you stop planning, or working, or caring about things. It means you stop trying to control what cannot be controlled. You stop trying to think your way into safety. You stop treating your mind like a machine that must always be running. Instead, you allow space. You allow moments where nothing needs to be figured out, where no decision needs to be made, where the mind is allowed to simply rest in awareness, like a bird settling onto a branch after a long flight. This is the practice, noticing when the mind begins to spiral, and gently, without judgment, without force, bringing your attention back to the present. Not to control the mind, but to give it permission to rest. You do not need to be good at this. You do not need to meditate for hours. You do not need to reach some enlightened state. You simply need to notice, and notice again, and notice again, and over time, the mind learns. It learns that it is safe to stop. It learns that presence is not disappearance. It learns that stillness is not emptiness, it is fullness. The fullness of being, without the weight of becoming. Your mind is not your enemy. It has never been your enemy. It has been working tirelessly, trying to protect you, trying to keep you safe, trying to make sense of a world that often makes no sense. And it is tired because it has been doing this alone, because you stopped listening to the deeper intelligence beneath the thinking, the intelligence of the body, the intuition, the quiet knowing that does not speak in words. The thinking mind was never meant to carry everything. It was meant to be one voice among many. But in a world that values logic and analysis above all else, the mind has been forced into the role of sole decision maker. And it is exhausted by the responsibility. This is what the tired mind has been trying to tell you. I need help. I need rest. I cannot do this alone. And the help it needs is not more thought. It is not more strategies, more techniques, more solutions. The help it needs is your return to presence. Your return to the awareness that exists before and beneath all thinking. Your return to the stillness that has always been here, waiting. When you return, the mind can finally relax, because it knows it is no longer the only one awake. It knows that you, the real you, the aware you, are here now, and it can rest in that knowing. There is a story the Sufis tell about a man who spent his entire life building a house. Every day, he added another room, another wall, another layer. He believed that once the house was finished, he would finally be at peace. But the house was never finished. There was always something more to build, something more to fix, something more to protect. And then one day, exhausted, he stopped. He walked outside and sat beneath a tree. And for the first time, he noticed the sky. He noticed the wind. He noticed that he had been so focused on building walls that he had forgotten why he wanted a house in the first place. He had forgotten that peace was not something to be constructed. It was something to be noticed. Your mind is like this man. It has been building thoughts, building identities, building protections, because it believed that once everything was in place, you would be safe. But the building never ends. The walls keep going up, and you, standing in the center of it all, have forgotten what it feels like to simply be outside, under the open sky, with nothing to defend. Letting go is not about abandoning your life. It is about abandoning the belief that your life must be controlled, perfected, understood before it can be lived. It is about trusting that you can exist without constant vigilance, that you can be here, fully here, without needing to think your way through every moment. This is freedom, not the freedom to do whatever you want, but the freedom to be without the endless commentary, without the constant evaluation, without the weight of a self that must always be maintained. And in that freedom, the mind rests. Finally, deeply rests. You do not need to become someone different. You do not need to fix yourself, or transcend yourself, or think yourself into enlightenment. You simply need to notice. Notice the breath. Notice the stillness beneath the noise. Notice that you are already here, already whole, already enough. And when the mind starts again, because it will start again, you do not need to fight it. You simply notice that too. You notice the thinking without becoming the thinker. You notice the worry without becoming the worried. You notice the fear without becoming the afraid. This is the practice, not perfection, just noticing. And in the noticing, something opens. Something that has always been open, but that you had forgotten how to see. Your mind is tired. It has been carrying you for so long. Let it rest now. Let it know that you are here, that you are aware, that it does not need to do this alone anymore. You are not your thoughts. You never were. You are the stillness that holds them, the awareness that watches them, the space in which everything arises and passes. And that space, that quiet, infinite space, has never been tired. It has never needed rest, because it is rest itself. Come back to it. Not someday. Not when you are ready. Now. Right now. Your mind is tired of thinking, and somewhere beneath all that noise, something in you knows this. Something has been waiting for you to notice. So notice, and let it all be still.